Thank you for inviting me. My topic, I will go on to 3 parts. I will just share on the perspective from Sarawak because I'm very much a Sarawakian. I talk quite a lot on Malaysia Agreement 1963. My term as a senator for 3 years just finished 2 weeks ago. All my major speech I touch on MA63. And one of the key elements in MA63 I talk about is on religion, the freedom of religion in Sarawak. And there are a few quotes I got it from my Royal Debate 2021. It just, many Malaysians do not know what is MA63. Even to say Sarawakians and Sabahans do not know what is MA 1963 until quite recently. We never had Malaysia Day until 12 years ago. We always celebrate Malaysia, our Independence Day as 31st August 1957, and we were taught about that in our school, even when I was in my primary school and secondary school. The formation of Malaysia, 60 years ago, 2 generations, our history was not taught. Malaysia history was not taught to us, especially to Sarawak. And over the last 10 years, we start to recover our history. And I am still recovering by taking part in this to share our views on religion. Sensitive topic, no doubt. When Malaysia was canvassed to people of Sarawak and Sabah, they saw the hope that Sarawak will be a very progressive, developed, economically modern state. That was the hope sold by all the leaders from Malaya and even by Singapore Prime Minister Lee Kuan Yew. They made tours around the country in Sarawak and North Borneo. That was the hope. That was the principal objective. I brought with me, and I've been doing quite a lot of research. 1961 is when the seriousness of Malaysia formation came into effect. There is this solidarity consultative committees. There are 4 sessions held, very heavy, where leaders of the community in Brunei, Singapore, Sarawak, Sabah was invited to share their views to discuss. It's something like a Hamzah of the debate of what Malaysia should it be there. So if you read through, you read the fear and the hope. So the hope was being so heavily, it will be good for Sarawak and Sabah. We will be very progressive, like Malaya. The leaders were taken to Malaya to have, wow, you see, we all can be like that. But then the fear, a lot of them is here, and do not think I have the time to go through all the quotes. But if you read through, you can read the fear inside. And what is the fear? The fear is religious freedom. I can just quote some of them here. We can move on to the first Prime Minister then, Tunku Abdul Rahman. He came in this consultative committee, and even during all his press conference, press release, like what he said here, to suggest that because the official religion in this country is Islam, that the Federation of Malaysia is non-secular state, and that when Malaysia comes into being, the people of Borneo territories will all be forced to embrace Islam is a wicked lie. And he insists that Islam was not the official religion and that Malaysia was a secular country. So hearing all the 3 speakers just now, the debate in Malaysia here is very much as to replacing our democratic constitution with an Islamic version of it. No longer a secular country. But that was the promise given to Sarawak, the hope of better economic future, overriding the fear. So there's always a saying among politicians, we say, politicians will sell hope, and hope made for a good breakfast, but a lousy supper. And that's what we are facing now after 2 generations. We are testing the supper. And Sarawak fear that day. And we can see how the encroaching Islamization, which you can see the fear from the speakers, from what is going on here, creeping into Sarawak and Sabah. Now, I'll give a few more quotes here. during the first Malaysian Solidarity Consultative Committee meeting. So you can see there are many quotes. I will just put a few. I won't read through all of them. Maybe I will just read one. I always want to take up that Malaysia formation was very much enticing Sarawak and Sabah to join. Without Sarawak and Sabah, there won't be Malaysia. And one of the key leaders who actually pushed for it is actually Lee Kuan Yew from Singapore, because Lee Kuan Yew was very desperate for Singapore to gain independence. And the British will only give it to him if you join Malaysia. And Malaysia will not accept Singapore unless Sarawak and Sabah came in. Yeah, I will just read one quote, because I don't put it there. I was just reading it through again this morning. I found it. And it's about the question of religion, because the representative from Malaysia who keeps pushing for the bright side of Malaysia was Ong Yok Ling. He represented Malaysia with a few others. And then Lee Kuan Yew also added on to what Ong Yok Ling said on religion. Here I'll just say, from Lee Kuan Yew, I would like first to elaborate on the point made by Dato' Ong, namely that the term state religion does not mean that the Federation is a state based on Islam. I must make the point that it is a secular state. In other words, it is a non-religious state, and the only significance of the state religion there means for ceremonial purposes only, swearing in ceremony, etc. So this kind of image was being given to us, to Sarawak and Sabah. So I would just say these are the background that we went through it, and we have led through 60 years. So what are we going to do? What's next? Let me go through. And of course, the official finding of the formation of the official document that support Malaysia comes from the Kobo Commission. Malaysia, you have the Reed Commission 1957 that led to the formation of Malaysia. In Sarawak and Sabah is the Kobo Commission that formed the basis of Malaysia. And what was recommended by Kobo Commission and in the IGC Intergovernment Committee Report 1962, that led from the basis of Malaysia Malaysia Constitution. We rely on the Malaysian 1957 Constitution, but it was heavily amended to incorporate Singapore, Sarawak, and Sabah. Article 3 on religion was never touched on because of the assurance given. Malaysia is a secular state. So that fear was being raised without any addition to protect Sarawak and Sabah, because it said it's a secular state, do not fear it. So no change to Article 3. But other changes as to the economics, financial, other thing was very much added in to give the autonomy and spatial privilege to Sarawak and Sabah. So you can see what Kobo Commission said here on religion. Next slide. The Kobo Commission report that formed the justification for the formation of Malaysia in 1963 stated that the Commission's chairman and the British members recommended that the state constitution of each of the border territories should contain a provision to the effect that there shall be complete religious freedom as to worship, education, and propagation. It wasn't added in, but it's just when it started, Sarawak and Sabah has no official religion. So we just take it as status quo, the 1957 Constitution. So that's how we went into this marriage formation of Malaysia in 1963. After 60 years, what happened? We move on to the present situation. I won't give my own opinion as to what happened the last 60 years, because academics has written about it, people has talked about it, less so among the politicians. I will just use two articles. I will give the names. If you're interested to understand more, read it, Google, you can find it. One is written by a Sarawakian, the other one is by Sabahan. So the first article is Identity Politics and Rise of Political Islam. The author is James Chin, a lecturer in University of Tasmania, was published in June 2021. It's a very good in-depth look to how identity politics that go into political Islam. And because he's a Sarawaki, he looked at it from the point of view, quite heavy on the Sarawak point of view. You will get a better picture of it. This morning I hear from the three speakers, it's very much Malayan-centric. There's not much content of Sarawak. We are sort of quite far away. So reading these two articles will give you a balance, not say balance, you get an opinion, get a view of what Sarawak and Sabah, the other two territories of Malaysia, feel and think of this Islamization that is happening now over the last 60 years. I will just read the conclusion of what James Chin has written. Identity politics in Malaysia is inherently intertwined with the rise of political Islam and the creation of Ketuhanan Melayu Islam. This unique brand of Islamic supremacy with a racial component had bred an increasingly intolerant and exclusive variety of Islam in Malaysia that will lead the country down a path of becoming less open and less progressive. Will Malaysia resemble Pakistan or Bangladesh, fraught with Islam-related violence in the society heavily influenced by ulama? And he concludes by saying, only time will tell. Then I move to the next article. Malaysia's green Islamic future. Politics, not religion, are responsible for this tragedy. It's written by a Sabahan, a former career top Malaysian diplomat, Dennis Ignatius. And his article was published in the Asia Sentinel, and it's been open for those, it's open for public to read it, otherwise you have to subscribe. But because of this article has great relevance, they're open to everyone to read. I happened to read it through one of the WhatsApp group that was circulated, and I find it very, very good read. And his conclusion actually, as an answer to what James Chin said, are we out of time? Only time will tell. He's basically saying the light has gone out or is going out. So he gave a negative view of the future, or pessimistic view. I did not put any quote on the slide. Maybe I'll just take 2 or 3 paragraphs to read to let it sink in. I'll read here. The sign of political Islam ascendancy and the future that Hadi, there's one Awan Hadi of past, represents have in fact been obvious for quite some time. The process is already far advanced on several fronts. Decades of intensive indoctrination within our national institution, for example, have quietly but decisively transformed them into bastions of political Islam. The lines between private religion, religious obligations, and institutional responsibilities have been increasingly blurred. The other paragraph here, I'll quote, this approach to public office has taken on a life of its own. Individual officers have at various levels seek to ensure that their respective departments and their policies and programs are Sharia compliant to the fullest extent possible. As a consequence, the dictates of political Islam are gradually being imposed on Muslim and non-Muslim alike, not by law but by administrative fiat. I'll read one more here. Whatever it is, the duplicity, he was not very kind to politicians because he's a diplomat. He sees it as a failure of the politicians to defend, to stand up. And here is what he says. Whatever it is, the duplicity of our politician is nothing short of criminal. In exchange for temporary power, position, and privilege, they are willing to compromise, even abandon, the fundamental and sacred principle that underpin Malaysia's status as a secular, multicultural, constitutional democracy. I'm also a politician being introduced as that. Here I'll just read the last paragraph. Whatever it is, one thing is certain. Malaysia is quickly coming to an inflection point. Islamists have plowed the ground well. Hadi's version of an Islamic state will soon enough become Malaysia's new political reality. Founding Prime Minister Tunku Abdul Rahman's Beacon of Light speech proclaiming independence as a secular nation in 1957 is about to go out. That's his conclusion. Now, humans are always very hopeful. In the worst scenario, we are always looking for hope. I've always been asked, and even by Sister of Islam, to prepare for this talk, we look for Sarawak and Sabah to help out to give that the balancing force, the moderating force. We like the people like Adnan Saten, Toknan, our leader. I think you also know our late Chief Minister, who was so brave and daring to speak. Yeah. He has made many speeches on religion, how we should be. Religion is no issue because they believe your religion is your religion and my religion is my religion. That is the feeling still in Sarawak. But will it last? Will it get better? Will it get worse? Time will tell. But definitely the creeping Islamization of Malaya is in Sarawak and Sabah because centralization of the power, the authority for the whole country, you cannot deny it. It is there. Politicians in Sarawak is very aware. All politicians, I think in Sarawak, will keep trying to say, don't get the Malayan politics to come in. They are their politics. They play dirty, they play race, they play religion. In Sarawak, we don't do this. We don't want them to come in. So we have our Premier, Abandro, also during the last state election, he said, stay out of the state election. That's like this. Stay out of our state election. Leave Sarawak to us. We Sarawakians know how to run the state. We don't want Malayan politics to end up in Sarawak. I wish a lot of politicians say that. But realistically, can we do that? Because we are one country. But it sounds good when we say that. Okay, I've got 5 more minutes. I'll move on. What do we do now? What's the future? Well, there's always hope. Can Sarawak and Sabah be the moderating factor? I think a lot of Malayans are the more progressive, more moderate. We would like to see Sarawak and Sabah do that. And I think Sarawak and Sabah has done that over the last decade or two, especially when the Barisan Nasional lost 2/3 majority and lost power, having to rely heavily on Sarawak's MPs to hold on to power. And Sarawak MPs are more often less extreme as those in Malaya. We don't have the past MPs there, less on racial Malay-centric parties. So that has a moderating factor on Malaysia. I think it has bought us some time. Will it buy us more time? Will we capitulate? Time will tell. We will need more people like Toknan from Sarawak and Sabah. And the check in Parliament over the last 2 elections has, I think, moderated. Sometimes in my talk, in my discussion among friends and politicians, I will say, they say that we are very lucky in Sarawak. We are more accommodating, race and religion is not an issue. My counter-argument has always been, will we still be like this in 30 years, 60 years from now, a generation or 2? Will we? Someone said no. I use a more realistic, more pragmatic way of looking at it. I say we are not what Malaya is now because we started late. If we continue like this, we will be like that. If we don't do any active action, we will be like that. So it is up to us to say, no, we don't want that direction. Malaya side, I have to leave it to the Malayan politicians and the leaders here and the civil society. The scary thing in Sarawak, I will share 2 examples from here. the Islamization coming in as a religion is fine, but it's taking over the identity of the people, of the group, of the natives. Now, I just give one is because here the politics of Islamization is actually from race to religion and combining the two. So you are become Muslim Malays. So what happened to the Bumiputras in Sarawak who has become Muslim? So they become Muslim Bumiputra. So it has always has to come to do. Why can't it be separated? So I just an example, personal experience. The Penangs, we all know them from the 80s, 1980s. The Penangs, the nomadic tribes in Sarawak, they start to come into meet with civilization. And there's attempt to get them to be civilized, bring them to live in the town, settle them down. So there is actually a kampong between Bintulu and Miri. It's called a Penang Muslim kampong. And I know some of these people, they are being identified as a race and a religion together. It has to go together. That's something I would say not healthy in Malaysia, and it's coming to Sarawak. So that's the negative part of it. And to share one more example, I have to give me 2 or 3 more minutes. Personal experience as a politician, I go to the ground a lot. The area that I was in charge of in politics is a semi-rural and urban. Semi-rural, we have the Chinese. I'm a Fuchao. There's a Fuchao settlement, semi-rural area, 12, 13 kampongs, half an hour to 1 hour from the town, Cebu. And when they were set up 100 over years ago, when the immigrants just came to settle, they all set up schools and a church around every village. And the school then later become SJK government school, primary school. And all this area, because Cebu is a timber town, so sawmills were set up nearby along the riverbank. So the workers will come. Some of the workers are Muslim, the Malandaus or the Indonesian. They send their children to school. And I realized one day, going to one school, Chinese school, it's always been, they got 50, 100 students, very rural, semi-rural. And then I walked in and I saw a religious teacher there. No, I said, why is he here? It's a very Fuchao kind of community. Oh, he said, because we have 2 Muslim students. So under the education guidelines or rules, if you have 2 Muslim students, you must have 1 religious teacher. Oh, then I went to see another one. Oh, it's true. So this is how it's spreading in. Through institution and through education. And in the school with 30, 40 people in a rural area, well, then you hear story of that this is happening throughout Sarawak. The Chinese Fuchao area is not so bad because the church, Christian church, the Methodist church is there. So, but then in the rural, the native community, they are there also. So then this tentacles is going in. So this is what is happening. Now my last slide. Why we have this problem here has been mentioned, I think, and you've read, is because of politics. You can say that it's because politics has failed us, or the problem largely contributed to politics. Why are we giving so much voice, or why are the voice of these more fundamentalist religious leaders, or even politicians, has so much voice? Why? Where are the more progressive, more rational voice? Why are they not heard? Everyone has the right to be heard, but my argument is certain groups have been given more time, bigger platform to speak than the rest. What's the cause of it? Gerrymandering. We have given weightage to this group to let them to be represented more than the other group. So naturally, they will have a bigger say. You will defend them the right to speak, as what was Sakinah was right. They can speak. Everyone can speak. But The thing is, you must give them fairness of time to speak. You cannot let someone just hold on the mic for 80% of the time, and he or she makes a decision the rest of. And gerrymandering, I think, is the cause of our failure. We have to write that so that all the groups in Malaysia has the right voice. Yeah, I believe I will just end here. I'll welcome questions. I have a lot of things actually I want to share, right? 15, 20 minutes as an introduction is good enough. Thank you very much.